I am Penelope, 34 years old, a single mom to my beautiful 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Our annual family gathering at my sister Ashley's house is usually tense, but this year crossed a line I never imagined. I found Lily sobbing in the bathroom, her golden hair completely shaved off. When Ashley saw my shock, she just laughed, saying, "It's a joke, hair grows back." If you're watching from a place where family has hurt you deeply, hit subscribe and stay with me to see how I finally stood up for my child in a way that made them never mess with us again. Life as a single mom isn't what I planned, but Lily and I have built something beautiful together. I work as a freelance graphic designer from our cozy 2-bedroom apartment in Seattle. The flexibility allows me to be there for school pickups and the countless little moments that matter in a 6-year-old's life. Lily's father walked out when she was barely 2, deciding fatherhood wasn't for him after all. The divorce was quick but painful. He moved across the country and rarely calls sending birthday cards with Amazon gift cards that feel like an afterthought. Lily has stopped asking about him, which breaks my heart, but also gives me strange relief. My daughter is extraordinary in so many ways. She's sensitive and observant, always noticing when I'm having a tough day, even when I try to hide it. She loves drawing elaborate pictures of magical forests and collecting smooth stones that she arranges in rainbow patterns on her windowsill. But her crown jewel was always her hair, long golden waves that caught the sunlight and turned almost white at the tips. She was so proud of it, often asking me to braid it in different styles she saw in her storybooks. Then there's my sister Ashley, 3 years older than me and always the dominant one in our relationship. Growing up, Ashley had a particular talent for making me the butt of her jokes, then telling me I was too sensitive when I got upset. She would hide my homework, tell embarrassing stories about me at school, or accidentally spill things on my clothes before important events. Our parents always seemed to find her antics amusing rather than concerning. "That's just how sisters are," they'd say with a laugh. "You need to toughen up, Penelope." Ashley married James right after college. He works in investment banking, always busy with clients and business trips. Their home in the suburbs is straight out of a magazine. Immaculate furnishings, artwork that probably costs more than my annual rent, and a backyard that looks like a private park. They have 9-year-old twin boys Tyler and Mason, who inherited their mother's mischievous streak, but without any of the charm that occasionally redeems Ashley. The twins have always treated Lily roughly, pushing her during family gatherings or excluding her from games. I've tried talking to Ashley about it, but she brushes it off. "Boys will be boys," she says with that dismissive wave of her hand. Lily needs to learn to stand up for herself. My relationship with my parents remains complicated. They've always held Ashley in higher regard, impressed by her material success and social connections. When we visit for holidays, they fawn over the twins, while Lily sits quietly trying to earn a fraction of their attention. I've learned to accept the dynamic, while trying to shield Lily from feeling the sting of their favoritism. Despite everything, I've maintained these family connections because I believe Lily deserves to know her extended family. I keep thinking that maybe things will improve, that Ashley will mature, that my parents will see Lily for the wonderful child she is. I've become an expert at avoiding confrontation, choosing my battles carefully, always putting Lily's well-being first. Ashley's pranks have gotten more elaborate over the years. Last Christmas, she replaced the sugar in my coffee with salt and laughed until she cried when I spit it out. During a family beach trip, she hid a plastic spider in my beach bag, knowing my intense phobia. Each time the family laughed along and I swallowed my anger, telling myself it wasn't worth disrupting the peace. But she had never targeted Lily before. That was my one unspoken boundary, the line I thought even Ashley wouldn't cross. For this year's family party, I had spent weeks preparing. Lily had picked out a special dress with sunflowers all over it. "Because they're happy flowers, Mommy." I had saved up to buy small but thoughtful gifts for everyone wanting to make a good impression despite our limited budget. Lily had made handmade cards for her grandparents, carefully writing their names in her still-developing handwriting. The morning of the party, I spent extra time styling Lily's hair, weaving a small braid at her temple, while leaving the rest to flow freely. She twirled in front of the mirror, her face glowing with excitement. "Do you think Grandma will like my card?" she asked, her blue eyes wide with hope. "She'll love it, sweetie," I assured her, wishing I felt as confident as I sounded. Lily chatted the entire car ride about seeing her cousins, wondering if they might be nicer this time. I reminded her that she could always come find me if she felt uncomfortable. but I encouraged her to try playing with the twins again. Sometimes people need more than one chance to be nice, I explained, believing my own words less and less with each passing year. As we drove, I couldn't shake a strange feeling of unease. I chalked it up to the usual anxiety these family gatherings provoked, never imagining what would actually unfold once we arrived. The drive to Ashley's suburban mansion took just over an hour, with Lily bouncing in her seat as we approached the large house with its perfectly manicured lawn. She clutched her homemade cards and small gift bags, rehearsing what she would say when presenting them. "I hope Tyler and Mason like the friendship bracelets I made them," Lily said, her voice a mixture of hope and uncertainty that made my heart ache. Despite past disappointments, she always approached these gatherings with fresh optimism. We pulled into the circular driveway behind my parents' luxury sedan. Ashley's home always made me feel slightly inadequate with its grand entrance and expensive furnishings. Today, balloons decorated the front door, an annual tradition celebrating the start of summer and our family reunion. "Look at my gorgeous girls," Ashley greeted us at the door, her smile too wide, her eyes not quite matching her enthusiastic tone. She wore a designer sundress that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, her hair professionally styled for what was supposedly a casual family gathering. She hugged me stiffly, then bent down to Lily. "And look at all that beautiful hair. What a pretty girl you are." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I dismissed it as my usual anxiety around my sister. Inside the house was bustling with activity. My parents were already settled in the living room, my father with his customary whiskey, my mother arranging a flower centerpiece that she had undoubtedly brought because Ashley's decor needed her special touch. "Penelope, you finally made it," my mother said, glancing at her watch, though we were perfectly on time. She kissed my cheek before turning her full attention to Lily. "Come give Grandma a hug, sweetie." Lily obediently went to my mother, who immediately began examining her appearance. "You're getting so tall. But, darling, that dress is a little short, isn't it? And your hair could use a good trim. Those split ends aren't doing you any favors." Before I could respond, the twins thundered down the staircase, their father James following behind with his perpetual look of distracted importance, phone in hand. Tyler and Mason circled Lily like sharks, their identical faces wearing smirks that immediately put me on alert. "Nice hair," Tyler said, exchanging a look with his brother that made my stomach tighten. "Want to come see our new video game?" Mason asked Lily. "It's upstairs in the playroom." Lily looked at me questioningly. Despite my instincts screaming caution, I nodded encouragingly. She deserved to have cousins who treated her well, and maybe this time would be different. "Be nice to your cousin," James called out absently as the children disappeared upstairs, his attention never leaving his phone screen. Ashley directed me to the kitchen to help with appetizers. The extended family began arriving, aunts, uncles, cousins, each greeting me with varying degrees of warmth. Conversations flowed around me as I arranged cheese platters and filled wine glasses. "How's the design work going?" My Aunt Karen asked, her tone suggesting that my freelance career wasn't quite a real job. "It's going well. I just finished a project for a major outdoor clothing brand," I replied, not mentioning the long hours or tight budget that had made the project a challenge. "That's nice, dear. Stable enough to support Lily properly," she pressed, glancing around the luxurious kitchen. We stood in the comparison unspoken but clear. As the afternoon progressed, I noticed Ashley whispering with our mother, both of them glancing upstairs occasionally. When I approached, they abruptly changed the subject to the new curtains in the dining room. The twins came downstairs twice for snacks, but without Lily. When I asked about her, they shrugged. "She's playing with our old toys," Mason said dismissively. An hour into the party, I realized I hadn't seen Lily in too long. The nagging worry I'd felt earlier returned stronger. I was arranging desserts when I heard it, a muffled sobbing coming from upstairs. Every maternal instinct surged within me. I dropped the serving spoon and moved toward the stairs, ignoring my mother's call about the unfinished dessert tray. As I climbed the stairs, the sobbing grew louder, coming from the direction of the main bathroom. Mixed with the crying, I heard hushed giggles and the sounds of hurried movement. "Lily?" I called out, my pace quickening. "Lily, are you okay?" The giggles stopped abruptly. I saw the twins dart from the bathroom into their bedroom, the door slamming behind them. The crying continued, punctuated by hiccuping breaths I recognized as my daughter's. Something was very wrong. I could feel it in the sudden silence from the adults downstairs, in the way the twins had fled, in the heart-wrenching sound of my child in distress. I reached for the bathroom doorknob, my hand trembling slightly, completely unprepared for what I was about to discover. The bathroom door wasn't locked, but it opened with resistance, as if something was pressed against it. The sound of Lily's crying intensified as I pushed my way in, and what I saw froze me in place, my brain refusing to process the scene before me. Lily sat on the cold tile floor, her back against the bathtub, knees pulled to her chest. Around her, scattered like fallen leaves, were long strands of golden hair, her beautiful hair, covering the white tiles like abandoned treasure. But what struck me with physical force was the sight of my daughter's head, completely shaved, uneven patches of scalp showing where the electric razor had been handled clumsily. A few random tufts remained, making the damage look even more deliberate and cruel. My daughter looked up at me, her face swollen from crying, eyes red and desperate, small hands clutching a clump of her own hair, as if trying to hold on to a part of herself that had been taken. "Mommy," she sobbed the word barely recognizable through her tears. For several seconds I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The bathroom seemed to spin around me as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the sounds of the party downstairs. I felt as if I'd been plunged into ice water, my entire body going numb before a wave of burning rage began to build. Finally, maternal instinct broke through my shock. I rushed to Lily, kneeling beside her on the hair-strewn floor, pulling her into my arms. She collapsed against me, her small body shaking with sobs. "What happened, baby? Who did this to you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. I just needed to hear it confirmed. Between gasping breaths, Lily told me how the twins had invited her to play hair salon in the playroom. At first, they were just brushing her hair and pretending to style it. Then Tyler had pulled out his father's electric razor from a drawer where they'd hidden it. "I said no, Mommy. I said I didn't want to play anymore," Lily hiccuped. "But Mason held my arms while Tyler started cutting. They said it was just a game and I was being a baby." She described how she'd struggled and cried, but the boys were stronger and laughed at her protests. When they finished, they told her she looked like an alien and locked her in the bathroom when she wouldn't stop crying. Each word was a knife in my heart. I held her tighter, my mind racing with fury and disbelief. How could anyone do this to a child? How could my own family allow this to happen? As I rocked Lily in my arms, the bathroom door pushed open wider. Ashley stood in the doorway, a strange expression on her face, something between amusement and satisfaction. Behind her, I could see James and my parents crowding the hallway, their faces registering shock as they took in the scene. "It's just a joke, Penelope," Ashley said with a dismissive laugh. "Hair grows back. Why are you making such a drama out of this?" Her words hung in the air between us, so callous and disconnected from the suffering of the child in my arms that for a moment I thought I must have misheard her. My mother pushed past Ashley into the bathroom, gasping when she saw Lily's shaved head. "Oh my goodness," she said, hand flying to her mouth. My father appeared behind her, his expression darkening, but instead of the outrage I expected, he sighed heavily. "Kids play rough sometimes. I'm sure the boys didn't mean any real harm." James peered in, looking uncomfortable, but not particularly concerned. "Boys will be boys." He muttered the same dismissive phrase I'd heard too many times before. The twins appeared in the hallway, their faces a mixture of defiance and uncertainty as they gauged the adults' reactions. When they saw there was no immediate punishment, small smirks appeared on their identical faces. "We were just playing barber shop," Tyler said with a shrug. "She looks funny," Mason added with a snicker that his father didn't bother to correct. Lily burrowed deeper into my embrace, her body tense with humiliation as everyone stared at her. I felt her tears soaking through my blouse, her fingers clutching desperately at my arms, as if afraid I too might fail to protect her. In that moment, surrounded by family who couldn't or wouldn't recognize the cruelty that had taken place, something crystallized within me. This wasn't a prank or a childish game gone wrong. This was intentional harm, and the casual dismissal by the adults was perhaps even more damaging than the act itself. I pulled away slightly to look at Lily's face, gently wiping her tears with my thumbs. "It's going to be okay," I whispered to her, meaning it with every fiber of my being. "I promise you, this is not okay, and I am going to make sure everyone knows that." The bathroom had become crowded, the air thick with tension, and the lingering scent of cut hair. More relatives had gathered in the hallway, murmuring and staring. Lily shrank from their gaze, trying to make herself smaller in my arms. As I looked up at the circle of faces, some concerned, others annoyed, none truly grasping the magnitude of what had happened, I knew this moment would define our family relationships forever. The choice before me was clear: continue the pattern of appeasing Ashley and excusing inexcusable behavior, or finally stand up not just for myself, but for my daughter. I chose Lily. I would always choose Lily. "Are you seriously overreacting like this?" Ashley's voice cut through the tense silence that had fallen over the bathroom. "It's just hair, for God's sake. It's not like the boys cut off her arm." I stood up slowly, helping Lily to her feet, while keeping her close to my side. My voice was surprisingly steady when I finally spoke, though inside I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. "Just hair. This is assault, Ashley. Your sons held my daughter down against her will and cut off her hair while she begged them to stop. And you think this is funny?" Ashley rolled her eyes dramatically. "Assault? Please, don't be so dramatic. Kids play rough sometimes. Lily needs to toughen up a bit. The world isn't going to coddle her like you do." James stepped forward, placing a hand on Ashley's shoulder. "Look, we're sorry if Lily's upset, but the boys are just being boys. They didn't understand it would be such a big deal." "They're 9 years old," I countered, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm for Lily's sake. "They absolutely understood what they were doing. They heard her crying and begging them to stop, and they continued anyway." The twins stood in the hallway, watching the adults argue with a mixture of curiosity and growing unease. Neither looked remotely sorry. Mason even whispered something to Tyler that made him snicker behind his hand. My mother pushed her way into the conversation, always ready to smooth things over at any cost. "Penelope, dear, we can fix this. We'll get Lily a cute little hat, or maybe a wig until it grows back. No need to ruin the whole family gathering over a silly prank." "A silly prank?" I echoed in disbelief. "Mom, look at her. Look at what they did to her." Lily was trembling against me, her hand repeatedly reaching up to touch her nearly bald head, as if still unable to believe what had happened. My father cleared his throat awkwardly. "Your mother's right. Let's not blow this out of proportion. Boys that age don't always think about consequences." "And whose fault is that?" I challenged, looking directly at Ashley and James. "If they've never been taught that actions have consequences, who failed them as parents?" Ashley's face flushed with anger. "How dare you question my parenting? At least my children have a father present in their lives. Maybe if Lily had a proper male role model, she wouldn't be so sensitive about everything." The low blow hit exactly as intended, twisting in my gut. But instead of shrinking back as I might have done in the past, I found the attack only fueled my resolve. "My daughter is sensitive, Ashley. And that's not a flaw, it's empathy. Something your sons clearly haven't been taught. And neither have you, apparently." By now, other family members had gathered in the hallway, their expressions ranging from uncomfortable to morbidly fascinated by the unfolding drama. "She does look rather strange," my grandmother commented from the doorway, adjusting her glasses to better see Lily's shaved head. "But girls these days do all sorts of odd things with their hair. Maybe she'll start a trend at school." Lily's grip on my hand tightened painfully at that comment, a small whimper escaping her lips. "She's 6 years old," I said through gritted teeth. "She loved her hair. She didn't choose this." Aunt Karen stepped forward with what she clearly thought was helpful advice. "Well, hair grows back. In the meantime, we could take her shopping for some cute hats. Make the best of the situation." No one seemed to understand or acknowledge the real issue, the violation of Lily's bodily autonomy, the deliberate act of humiliation, the breach of trust. They were all so focused on minimizing the incident, on preserving the artificial peace of the family gathering, that they couldn't see the real damage being done. As the adults continued to offer unhelpful suggestions and excuses, I noticed Ashley pull my mother aside, whispering something that made my mother glance at Lily, and then nod slightly. The conspiratorial look between them sent a chill through me. Later, as I guided Lily to a quiet corner to help her clean up, Ashley approached me alone. Her voice was low, meant only for my ears. You always were too soft with her. Some kids need to learn the hard way that the world isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Maybe now she'll toughen up a bit. The casual cruelty of her words stunned me. This wasn't just boys being boys or a prank gone wrong. This had been deliberate, perhaps even planned. A calculated act meant to hurt Lily, and by extension me. In that moment, looking into my sister's cold eyes, I saw with perfect clarity the toxic pattern that had defined our family for generations. The casual cruelty disguised as teasing the victim, blaming the expectation that those hurt should simply toughen up, rather than the perpetrators being held accountable. I had endured it throughout my childhood, and had unconsciously allowed it to continue into the next generation. But seeing it directed at my daughter, with such calculated malice, broke something open inside me, a dam of compliance and fear that had held back my true strength for too long. The family gathering continued around us, people pretending nothing significant had happened. The twins were already playing video games downstairs, faced with no consequences for their actions. My parents were chatting with relatives as if their granddaughter hadn't just been traumatized. And I knew with absolute certainty that if I didn't take a stand now, this pattern would continue forever with Lily bearing the scars just as I had. The thought was unbearable. Something had to change, and it had to change today. The murmur of conversation from downstairs filtered up to the bathroom, where I was helping Lily wash her face. The party was continuing as if nothing had happened. Glasses clinking, laughter rising and falling, the smell of dinner preparations wafting through the house. The casual normality of it all felt obscene, in contrast to the trauma my daughter had just experienced. I gently wiped Lily's tears away with a damp washcloth, my heart breaking at how small and vulnerable she looked without her flowing hair. The bathroom floor was still covered with the golden strands, a painful reminder of what had been taken from her without consent. "Mommy!" Lily whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "Can we please go home now?" Her simple request crystallized everything for me. Yes, we needed to leave this place where her pain was dismissed, where cruelty was excused as humor, where the adults who should protect her had failed her so completely. "Yes, baby, we're going home right now," I promised, helping her into her little jean jacket, pulling the hood up to give her some comfort and privacy. As we descended the stairs, all eyes turned to us. The conversations didn't quite stop, but they dimmed, replaced by whispers behind hands and significant glances. Lily kept her head down, clutching my hand so tightly it almost hurt. Ashley intercepted us at the bottom of the stairs, wineglass in hand, her expression a carefully constructed mask of concern that didn't reach her eyes. "You're not leaving already, are you? Dinner's almost ready. Mom made your favorite casserole." "We're leaving," I stated firmly, trying to step around her. Ashley moved to block our path. "Don't be ridiculous, Penelope. You're making this into a much bigger deal than it needs to be. Stay for dinner, let things calm down. The boys will apologize if that's what you want." "Move out of our way, Ashley." Something in my tone must have surprised her because her eyebrows shot up, and for a moment she looked uncertain. I had never spoken to her that way before, had never really stood up to her at all. The living room had gone quiet, everyone watching our confrontation with uncomfortable fascination. My parents approached cautiously, my mother already wearing her peacekeeping expression. "Penelope, dear, let's not be hasty," she began. "Family should stay together, especially during difficult moments." "Family?" I repeated the word, tasting bitter in my mouth. "Is that what this is?" Because from where I'm standing, family doesn't humiliate a 6-year-old child and then laugh about it. Family doesn't dismiss trauma as oversensitivity. Family protects each other. My father frowned. "Now listen here, young lady. No one's saying what the boys did was right, but..." "But nothing," I interrupted, surprising even myself with my firmness. "There is no but that justifies what happened here today. Not one." I looked around the room at the faces of my extended family. People who had witnessed my sister's bullying behavior my entire life and had done nothing. People who were now witnessing the same pattern continuing with the next generation and were still doing nothing. For years, I've accepted the way this family operates. I've swallowed my feelings, made excuses, tried to belong. I thought that's what family meant. Unconditional acceptance, even when it hurts. But I see now that I was wrong. True love isn't about accepting harmful behavior. It's about setting boundaries against it. The room was completely silent now. Even Ashley seemed momentarily speechless. My daughter will not grow up thinking it's normal to be mistreated by the people who should love her most. She will not learn that her feelings don't matter, that her boundaries can be violated for someone else's amusement. And I will not continue to participate in a family dynamic that normalizes cruelty. I pulled out my phone from my purse, my hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "What are you doing?" Ashley demanded, her voice sharp with sudden anxiety. "Taking pictures," I replied calmly, photographing Lily's shaved head, the scattered hair still visible on the staircase, the twins watching from the corner with smirks that faded as they realized something had shifted. "Documentation. For the school, for our community, and yes, Ashley, for social media if necessary." James stepped forward, his usual detached demeanor replaced by alarm. "Now wait just a minute, there's no need to make this public." "Isn't there?" "Because private conversations clearly haven't worked. Your sons have been bullying my daughter for years, and neither of you have done anything to stop it. Maybe public accountability is exactly what's needed." "You wouldn't dare." Ashley hissed, her facade of casual amusement completely gone now. "You'll ruin the boys' reputations. Think about their future." "I am thinking about their future," I replied steadily. "I'm thinking that if no one teaches them now that actions have consequences, their future holds much worse than some social media embarrassment. And I'm thinking about Lily's future, a future where she knows her mother will always stand up for her no matter what." I turned to address the whole room. "I want to be very clear about what's happening here. Tyler and Mason assaulted my daughter today. They held her down against her will and cut off her hair while she begged them to stop. That's not a prank or a joke. It's assault, and any adult who tries to minimize or excuse it is complicit." My mother gasped, her hand flying to her throat. "Assault, Penelope, that's a very serious accusation." "Yes, it is. And I'm prepared to treat it with the seriousness it deserves, including filing a police report if necessary." That got everyone's attention. James's face paled, and Ashley's eyes widened with genuine shock. Even the twins looked suddenly afraid, the reality of consequences finally penetrating their bubble of privilege. "You can't be serious," James sputtered. "They're children. Old enough to know right from wrong," I countered. "Old enough to understand consent and respect. Old enough to face consequences for their actions." I looked down at Lily, who was watching me with a mixture of amazement and relief, as if seeing a side of her mother she'd never witnessed before. I squeezed her hand reassuringly before continuing. "Here's what's going to happen. We are leaving now. I expect a genuine apology from both boys, written in their own words, not dictated by their parents. I expect Ashley and James to pay for therapy sessions for Lily to help her process this trauma. And I expect everyone in this family to reflect deeply on the culture of bullying that has been allowed to flourish unchecked." The silence that followed was profound. No one moved to stop us as I guided Lily toward the front door. Just before stepping outside, I turned back one last time. "And if I ever hear of the twins or anyone else in this family hurting my daughter again, physically or emotionally, there will be no second chances. We will be done permanently." As we walked to the car under the warm summer sun, I felt simultaneously drained and electrified. For the first time in my life, I had spoken my truth, without apology, had drawn a line and defended it. The weight of decades of compliance and fear seemed to lift from my shoulders with each step. Lily looked up at me as I buckled her into her car seat. "Are you mad at me, Mommy?" she asked in a small voice. I cupped her face gently in my hands. "No, baby, not at all. I'm mad at what happened to you, but never at you. I'm so proud of you for telling me the truth and for being so brave." "Will my hair grow back?" she whispered, her fingers nervously touching her scalp. "Yes, it will. And until then, we'll find beautiful ways for you to feel confident. But Lily, remember this. Your worth has nothing to do with your hair or how you look. You are valuable because you are you. Kind, creative, Wonderful you. As we drove away from Ashley's house, I glanced in the rearview mirror to see several family members standing on the porch watching us leave. I didn't know what would happen next, how they would react once the shock wore off, whether bridges had been permanently burned. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't making decisions based on fear of rejection or desperate need for approval. I was choosing my daughter. I was choosing what was right. And somehow, that felt like the most powerful choice I had ever made. The days following the incident were both challenging and transformative. The morning after the party, I woke up with a strange mixture of dread and determination. Lily was still asleep, exhausted from the emotional ordeal, and the tears that had continued on our drive home and well into the night. My phone was filled with messages, angry texts from Ashley calling me dramatic and threatening to cut me off from the family, concerned messages from my parents urging reconciliation. And surprisingly, a few supportive notes from extended family members who had witnessed the confrontation. My first call was to Lily's school. I spoke with her principal, explaining what had happened and requesting support for Lily's return. Mr. Thompson was immediately understanding and concerned. "This is completely unacceptable, Ms. Lewis," he said firmly. "I'll speak with Lily's teacher and our school counselor. We can arrange for a class discussion about respecting boundaries and personal space without singling Lily out." His validation was like a balm to my raw nerves. Finally, an adult response that acknowledged the seriousness of what had happened. When Lily woke up, her first instinct was to reach for her missing hair, her face crumpling as she remembered. I sat with her on her bed, holding her as a fresh wave of tears came. "I don't want to go to school," she whispered against my shoulder. "Everyone will laugh at me." "We don't have to go today," I assured her. "But your friends and teachers care about you, Lily. They'll understand that something hurtful happened and they'll want to help you feel better." While Lily picked out her breakfast, I made another important call. To my friend Sophia, who owned a boutique specializing in accessories. I explained the situation, and without hesitation, she offered to open her shop early just for us. "Bring her in," Sophia said warmly. "We'll find some beautiful head wraps and hats that will make her feel special until her hair grows back." That afternoon, Sophia welcomed us with open arms. She had set aside a collection of colorful hats, soft head wraps, and even a few child-sized wigs that could be styled in various ways. She turned the traumatic situation into a fashion adventure, encouraging Lily to try different looks and praising how each one highlighted her beautiful eyes or sweet smile. For the first time since the incident, I saw my daughter smile genuinely as she twirled in front of the mirror wearing a teal head wrap with small sparkles. Sophia refused to let me pay, insisting this was her gift to Lily. Meanwhile, my phone continued to buzz with messages. Ashley had moved from anger to manipulation, sending texts like, "Mom and Dad are so upset with you. They think you're tearing the family apart over nothing." Then, "The boys are crying because they think their aunt hates them now. Is that what you want?" I didn't respond. Instead, I did exactly what I had promised at the party. I shared our story on social media, not with vindictive rage, but with honest reflection about family boundaries and protecting children. I included a photo of Lily in her new head wrap with her permission and tagged both Ashley and James. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Other parents shared similar stories of family members crossing boundaries with their children. Several mothers from Lily's school reached out with messages of support. A local hair salon offered free treatments to help Lily's hair grow back healthily. The most surprising reaction came from James's business associates. His investment firm prided itself on family values and community standing. Several clients contacted him concerned about the values being modeled in his home. Suddenly, the incident wasn't so easy for him to dismiss. 3 days after the party, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Andrea, a family law attorney who had seen my post. "What happened to your daughter is assault," she said, confirming what I had stated at the party. "Even though the perpetrators are minors, you have grounds for legal action if you choose to pursue it. At minimum, I'd recommend documentation and a formal demand for therapy costs." Her professional validation gave me confidence that I wasn't overreacting as my family had claimed. I agreed to meet with her the following week to discuss options. When Lily returned to school 5 days after the incident, I was a nervous wreck. I had spoken with her teacher, Ms. Garcia, who promised to be vigilant for any teasing. But children can be unpredictable and sometimes cruel. I waited anxiously in the pickup line that afternoon, scanning Lily's face as she walked toward the car. To my surprise, she was smiling, walking alongside her best friend Emma, who was wearing a colorful bandana around her head in solidarity. Emma wore this because she said she wanted me to feel better, Lily explained as she buckled her seatbelt. And guess what? 3 other girls wore hats too. Ms. Garcia said we could wear hats in class, even though it's usually not allowed. The next day, even more of Lily's classmates showed up in hats and head wraps. Ms. Garcia sent me a photo of the class, nearly half of them wearing head coverings, all smiling around Lily. She had organized a discussion about kindness and standing up for friends without directly mentioning what had happened to Lily. As word spread through our community, more support poured in. Neighbors dropped off small gifts for Lily, books, craft supplies, a butterfly kit she had been wanting. Other mothers reached out to share their own stories of family conflicts and boundary setting, making me realize how many people silently endure similar situations. 1 week after the incident, the dam finally broke. James called his voice tense but controlled. "This has gone far enough," he began. "Ashley and I are willing to pay for therapy sessions for Lily. The boys have written apology letters. We can drop them off or mail them if you prefer." I could hear the strain in his voice, the reluctant concession of someone who still didn't fully understand the gravity of what had happened, but was feeling the external pressure. "Mail them," I replied, "and the therapy offer is accepted, but this isn't over. Your sons need professional help understanding empathy and boundaries. If you're serious about making amends, that's where it starts." There was a pause before he responded. "We're looking into family counseling options." It wasn't a full acknowledgement of responsibility, but it was a start. The first real consequence the twins had probably ever faced. The most profound changes, however, were happening within our small family of 2. Lily was discovering a resilience she hadn't known she possessed. Each day she chose a different head covering with growing confidence, sometimes even requesting to go without any covering at home, accepting her new appearance with remarkable grace. And I was finding my voice, not just with my family, but in all areas of my life. I negotiated better rates for my design work, set clearer boundaries with clients about revision timelines, and even confronted a neighbor whose dog repeatedly damaged our small garden. As I watched Lily's quiet confidence grow alongside my own, I realized we were both healing not just from the recent trauma, but from years of accepting less than we deserved. The path forward wasn't entirely clear, but for the first time I was certain we would walk it on our own terms with our heads held high. 6 months passed like the changing seasons each day, bringing small but noticeable growth, both in Lily's hair and in our lives. The initial shock and raw pain of that family gathering had mellowed into something more complex, a mixture of sadness for what was lost pride in how we had responded, and cautious hope for what might still be rebuilt on healthier foundations. Lily's hair had begun growing back, a soft fuzz covering her head that she sometimes stroked absently while reading. She had embraced her temporary baldness with unexpected strength, turning it into a statement of sorts. Her collection of colorful head wraps and hats had become her trademark at school, with friends even asking to borrow them sometimes. "Evelyn wants to know where I got my purple sparkle wrap," she told me one afternoon after school, her eyes bright with the simple joy of being wanted rather than pitied. I told her it was special from Aunt Sophia's store, but maybe we could take her there sometime. These small moments of normal childhood happiness were precious victories, each one healing another piece of the wound inflicted that summer day. The family landscape had shifted dramatically. Ashley and I hadn't spoken directly since the incident, though I heard through my parents that she and James had indeed begun family therapy. The twins had been enrolled in a specialized program focusing on empathy development and appropriate social behavior. Whether this was from genuine recognition of the problem or merely damage control for their social standing, I couldn't say, but it was something. My parents had taken longer to come around. For weeks after the incident, they tried to pressure me into reconciliation without accountability, calling almost daily with pleas to put this behind us and think of the family. "Forgiveness is important, Penelope," my mother would say, her voice carrying that familiar note of emotional manipulation. Holding grudges only hurts you in the end. This isn't about grudges, Mom, I would respond patiently. It's about protecting Lily and teaching her that she deserves respect. The turning point came 3 months after the incident when my father unexpectedly showed up at our apartment alone. He stood awkwardly in our small living room, taking in the colorful art on the walls, mostly Lily's creations, and the modest but comfortable space we called home. "Your mother doesn't know I'm here," he admitted, fidgeting with his car keys. "I wanted to talk to you alone." We sat at our tiny kitchen table while Lily was at a friend's house. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared at his weathered hands. "I've been thinking about what you said at the party." He finally began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "About complicity. About how we've all let certain behaviors continue because it was easier than confronting them." He looked up, his eyes meeting mine directly for what felt like the first time in years. "I failed you, Penelope. When you were growing up, I let your sister's treatment of you slide because it seemed easier than dealing with the conflict. I told myself that's just how siblings are, that you needed to toughen up. But watching what happened to Lily, seeing it through a grandfather's eyes..." His voice broke, slightly surprising both of us. My father rarely showed emotion. No child should be treated that way, and no parent should have to fight the whole family to protect their child. He reached across the table, briefly touching my hand. "You were right to stand up the way you did. I should have done the same for you many years ago." That conversation marked the beginning of a slow, cautious reconciliation with my parents. They started visiting our apartment instead of always insisting we come to their house. My father took a genuine interest in Lily's art projects, even framing one of her drawings for his office. My mother still struggled more with the changes, occasionally slipping into old patterns of minimizing problems, but she was trying. Perhaps the most meaningful change was in how I approached parenting. The incident had forced me to articulate values I had always felt, but never fully expressed: the importance of bodily autonomy, the right to set boundaries, the courage to stand up against cruelty, even when it wears the mask of family love. Lily and I had many conversations about these topics adapted for her age, but never diluted or sugar-coated. "You always have the right to say no when it comes to your body," I told her one night as I tucked her in. "And if anyone ever tries to make you feel bad for setting a boundary that's about their issues, not yours." "Like when Tyler and Mason wouldn't stop even when I said no," she asked, her voice small but steady. "Exactly like that. They were wrong, not you. And you were so brave to tell me what happened." These conversations weren't always easy, but they were healing. Lily was learning lessons about self-worth and courage that I hadn't fully grasped until much later in life. As for me, I finally started therapy to address my own childhood experiences. The therapist helped me recognize patterns I had normalized, the constant belittling disguised as teasing, the expectation that I should absorb mistreatment without complaint, the way I had been trained to prioritize keeping peace over protecting myself. "You broke a generational cycle," Dr. Winters told me during one session. "That's one of the hardest and bravest things a person can do." The professional validation helped, but the real evidence of change was in our daily lives. Lily woke up without anxiety about seeing her cousins. I made business decisions without constantly second-guessing myself. We both spoke more directly about our feelings, knowing they would be respected. 6 months after the incident, we received an invitation to a small family dinner at my parents' house. Ashley and her family would be there too. The first time we would all be together since that disastrous summer party. "Do you want to go?" I asked Lily, making it clear the choice was genuinely hers. "We can say no if you're not ready." She thought about it seriously, her face scrunched in concentration. "Will Tyler and Mason be there?" "Yes, but we can set some rules before we go. You don't have to play with them if you don't want to. You can stay with me the whole time." She nodded slowly. "I want to go. I miss Grandma and Grandpa, and..." She hesitated, touching her hair that had grown into a pixie style she'd come to like. "I want them to see that I'm okay, even after what happened." The wisdom in her simple statement brought tears to my eyes. At 6 years old, she had grasped something profound about resilience and courage, The dinner was understandably tense at first. Ashley avoided direct eye contact with me, focusing excessive attention on serving the food. The twins were subdued, clearly having been prepped for the encounter. My parents tried too hard to keep conversation flowing, jumping nervously from topic to topic. But then something unexpected happened. Tyler, the older twin by 7 minutes, and usually the ringleader, approached Lily with a handmade card. "I'm sorry for cutting your hair." He said the words rehearsed, but the discomfort genuine. "It was mean, and I wouldn't like it if someone did that to me." Mason followed with his own apology, less polished, but equally important. Lily accepted both with a simple, "Okay," neither extending immediate forgiveness nor holding visible anger, just acknowledgement of the moment's significance. Later, as the adults cleaned up after dinner, I found myself alone in the kitchen with Ashley. The silence between us was heavy with unspoken words. Finally, she spoke, her voice lacking its usual confidence. "The boys' therapist says they're making progress. They talk about what happened with Lily a lot, about understanding how it made her feel." She paused, wiping the dish with unnecessary focus. "I never thought I'd have kids in therapy at 9 years old." "Therapy isn't a punishment," I replied carefully. "It's a tool to help them grow into better people." She nodded slightly, still not meeting my eyes. "James and I are in therapy too, separately and together. It's been illuminating." It wasn't an apology, not directly, but it was an acknowledgement that something had been fundamentally wrong, not just in that single incident, but in the patterns that led to it. For now, that was enough to keep the door open a crack. As we drove home that night, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, emotionally exhausted from the evening, but peaceful. Looking at her in the rearview mirror, I marveled at the person she was becoming. Stronger, more confident, with a clear sense of her own worth that I hadn't developed until much later in life. The journey of healing wasn't over. There would be more difficult conversations, more boundaries to maintain, more moments of standing firm when it would be easier to give in. But we had started something important, not just healing from a single traumatic event, but breaking a cycle that had persisted for generations. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those closest to us, the people who should offer the greatest protection and love. But in healing those wounds, we discover strengths we never knew we possessed, and truths that can transform not just our own lives, but the lives of those who come after us. Lily's hair would grow back fully in time, but the lessons we had both learned about courage, boundaries, and the true meaning of family, those would last forever. I would love to hear from you in the comments if you've ever had to stand up to family for your child's sake. How did you find the strength? What happened afterward? Remember to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with anyone who might need encouragement to set healthy boundaries even with family. Thank you for being part of our journey, and remember that protecting those we love sometimes means making the hardest choices. Your support means everything as we continue to heal and grow stronger together.